My name is Terri Messenger, and I am
Hey, and welcome to Terri Messenger's Genius Zone. And, this is the place in the space where you are going to get your own free masterclass absolutely free.
I then move, help them shift, exhausted from that. So I then move, help them shift into acknowledgement of self, acknowledgement of past, because we develop blind spots in imposter syndrome. We become really blind to our gifts. We become super hypervigilant to everything that goes wrong. So it is a paradigm shift.
Closed. And now I'm just going to get you to merge right back to where you are in the room, inside your body, in your completeness, in your absolute divine love and understanding you have for yourself. And on the count of 3, open your eyes. 1, 2, and 3, and open your eyes. Beautiful. Oh, I'm so excited, Rachel. You have finally birthed a program that I know as a coach of coaches, I know I would love to bring you into my community so you can actually bless these people with what you've got. So firstly, give it to me, sister. What is the name of your program?
Hi, I'm Rachel, and that's my name. The name of my program is, hi, I'm Rachel. Thank you so much, Terri. The name of my program is Imposter to Impact.
I love that. And imposter to impact. So as I'm hearing imposter to impact, it's kind of conjuring up so much stuff. So is this mean, I guess, what would you say to me if I was a little girl, if you were going to put it in another way, like from pretentious to this or from this to that? How would you describe that?
Well, imposter syndrome is when we feel like a fake or a fraud. And I'm someone who likes alliteration, and I like powerful words because I believe as humans we're very powerful. So I think another way would be to move from fake to phenomenal.
Woo! So hear that, guys? Are you ready to move from fake to phenomenal with this amazing woman who I believe is going to be running a program where she is just going to completely expand your consciousness in a way that's going to take you, as she says, from fake to phenomenal, from that imposter that you may have felt that you've been to someone that is, like, what do they feel, Rachel, when they come through to the end? What is it that they sense about themselves?
At the end, those I work with or I collaborate with, they will feel a fully expanded, really grounded and harnessed, expanded sense of everything that they bring to the table authentically. They feel that they belong and that they own their seat at the table, that they're not an imposter, that they have a really deep understanding of who they are, what they do well, how they learn well, and they literally expand into the better than expected version of who everyone else thought they were capable of. They know what they're capable of, and they know how to deliver it, and confidently, willingly, and authentically.
You really teared up about this, and this is the part that really touches my heart and is the reason that I selected you, because when someone tears up about something, they're making a stand, and you're making a stand for these people, sister. And I have to say that You know, it sounds like you are fanning them into flames. And, you know, what I heard you say, and I heard your higher self say, is that they're sort of coming from a place where they've probably spent a lot of their life feeling like, you know, they were an outcast. You didn't use those words, but they felt different. And you described it as, instead of them feeling like there's something wrong with them, you described it so beautifully. Could you just explain to the audience how they suddenly pivot from being in that position of where they've spent years really feeling like, you know, I was one of those, feeling like there was something wrong and like a square peg in a round hole to the other side. Can you talk me through that?
Yeah. So most of the people that I work with in overcoming their imposter syndrome and moving them into impact, the first thing that they acknowledge is that they're exhausted and they're tired of constantly feeling like they're not good enough, like they don't belong, like they're somehow missing a key to that sense of belonging internally. And they are aware of the fact that they do things differently. And quite often in younger life, that difference, either that overexpression or that over investment or, you know, that over consideration, all of that kind of thing, quite often that was, I'm going to use the word pathologized. It was made that something wrong with them, when actually their difference is the very thing that distinguishes them in a really positive way. It sets them apart as someone who is inspirational, as someone who can be an inspired, empowered, and empowering leader, not someone that isn't the same as everyone else. They're different, but for all of the right reasons. So they can begin to belong to themselves and vibrate at that level of all of those leaders, all of, you know, high achievers. Generally, I have yet to meet someone who suffers from imposter syndrome who is not an exceptionally high achiever already.
Wow, that is a huge insight, because yeah, I have to agree with that. It's never landed, you know, in my awareness, but as we're speaking, you've just hit the nail on the head. So, you know, if you happen to be listening to this and you are a high achiever and you're suddenly recognizing that, you know, you've been feeling all these things for so long, you know, while you were in state, while you were in that kind of, you know, transition of, you know, being in your higher self, your spiritual realm, you talked about this person, by the time they get to the end of their program, they're just going to feel so much pleasure being in their own skin. You talked about them becoming more patient, and you talked about the big leap, them having this big leap of where they can suddenly express themselves, you know. So what happens, because they've also, you've helped them build strong boundaries, right? I know this because we did radio show together, we've done this together, we've even gone out into the 5 dimensions together. So wow, it doesn't get much deeper than that. But they also become so much more flexible. So what's going on here? How did you, what was it about them where they suddenly went from this rigidity to expectations of themselves that were unattainable to a sudden deep love for themselves and this incredible feeling of being so comfortable in their own skin? Like, what was the big shift in their mindset, in their belief system that got them to that?
I mean, it's quite difficult to draw that down into just one person, because different people do imposter syndrome differently. And I think that one of the things that is consistent throughout is that those who suffer from it, and I call it a state anyway. So I'm calling it imposter syndrome because everybody does that, but I believe it's a suite of states that people don't know how to handle very well. And quite often, I have met people who are innately, naturally good at things. Things come easily to them. And because of that, because it's an innate wisdom, my alarm's about to go off, I think. But because it's innate wisdom, they don't necessarily recognize the benchmarks of learning that then when someone says, what was your process? They find it really, really hard to do. Anyway, so they move into rejection of self, rejection of experience, rejection of everything that went right into rejection of everything that was wrong. And that's when I meet them and they're exhausted from that. So I then help them shift into acknowledgement of self, acknowledgement of past, acknowledgement. So I move from being in spite and despite into inspired by the past. I help them take themselves out of the situation, to take the feelings out of the facts, and actually just work on evidence that supports, because we develop blind spots in imposter syndrome. We become really blind to our gifts, and we become super hypervigilant to everything that goes wrong. So it is a paradigm shift. They move from I can't or I'm wrong to I can do and I will do, and I'll discover what's possible. That exciting. Have I answered that question?
Oh, beautifully. And look, I hear you, and there is all of these images coming to me, and I'm wondering if it's a transmission of your client, but I'm getting the burnt out corporate high achiever that is ready to transition to the next level. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with so many of Next Level. I've worked with so many corporate high achievers and entrepreneurs. It's a level of exhaustion, because to cope with that fear of not being good enough or that not belonging, human beings are adaptable, right? And this, including, less than helpful habits, we get good at them if we keep repeating them and keep practicing them. And quite often, when a young person, a child, any human being experiences something that they're not comfortable with, they'll react in a way to avoid feeling more of that thing. And quite often for imposters, they overreact, they overdo, they overthink, they overfeel, they focus on the wrong things quite often. And that's their response behavior. So I help them learn alternative response behaviors. I help them explore different alternative truths that resonate better for them than the truth that they're working from. And we talked about it yesterday. We begin to recognize what's plausible, what's possible, and what's probable, because quite often an imposter is using that sort of language. They're taking a real outlier, plausible thing and saying it's probable, when actually it's probably the worst case scenario. So
yeah, and so I'm hearing a lot inside of your program, and from what you spoke about during that transition of taking that person into that space, is that they're sort of going from that real inner conflict where they've really beaten themselves up all their life because they're so damn high achieving, so damn high expecting, and then devastated because they can't keep up with the expectation of what they are producing. And the number one, there was a couple of things that I heard you say, but the number one thing was really self-acceptance. And I feel like, when you said come into your own skin, coming in and feeling the pleasure of just being you. And the number two element was forgiveness. And number three, which was picked up yesterday on the radio show, was boundaries. So, you know, really having the ability to set those boundaries, have that ability to go through Rachel's program and find who you are, and rather than being isolated in your own inner conflict in that world, sort of coming into yourself and really finding your point of excellence and having that ability to really turn your life around. So what and how can this person get in contact with you? What is the best way to contact the beautiful Rachel Hudson?
Well, thank you for asking. Guess how prepared I am for this. I have my old website, but I'm about to transition to a new website. So probably the best way to avoid missing me is on my Instagram at the moment, which is at dochange, DOCHAN, Rachel at dochange. Yeah, I can.
And we'll drop that into the link, by the way. So, guys, if you're listening up, you can go directly to the link and we'll put everything there, including Rachel's calendar for you to get on a call, because I know this lady is very, very loving. She's very giving, and it'll be a call that is definitely well worth it. Now, I'm going to conclude by actually asking the question that I always love to ask on my show. So the question I love to ask everyone, because I just find that there is something, this is my own personal little zone of genius, but there's something that I do, or I see, that seems to happen when I'm speaking to real soul aligned sisters like yourself and brothers, where something in them awakens and their inspiration awakens. So I often find people want to come back and say, oh, I want to say this and I want to say that. So what I want to ask you is, if you could make a statement that, you know, if you did leave the show, you think, oh, I'd love to really share that with the listeners, because, you know, there's going to be people that are praying to meet with you, Rachel. You know, what would be your last words for this show?
Thank you for this opportunity. Imposter state keeps us far from phenomenal, and it keeps us in fight, flight, freeze mode. So I know that if you go through Imposter to Impact, you'll have learned so many tools and tasks that will help you move from flight mode to flow mode, to help you move from far from phenomenal to phenomenal. You will learn there are so many ways of responding to one stimulus. So you'll be free to learn and adapt so many different ways of responding to something, so that the need to please, that addiction to pleasing people, is let go of.
Wow. So let go of the people pleasing. Approval addict.
Approval addict. Thank you. That's the one. And you'll learn a number of ways to get into high performance states, so that your best self, your brilliant self, your exceptional self, your phenomenal self, every single one of those can allow you to stand out, be outstanding for all of the right reasons, and to feel like you belong there.
Rachel, thank you so much for everything that you've brought to this show.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on another empowering episode of our show, where we have explored through this various topic, along with all the exciting new topics that we bring every week to enhance your personal mastery of excellence. Now, I'd love you to do me a favor. In fact, be part of the Legacy 1 million that I have in the vision for 2028. If you know someone who really would benefit from this recording, from this episode, please share it with them. And when you subscribe, you get notified every week of our episode as soon as it drops. So let's do that legacy thing. Let's share, let's care, let's enrich. And I look forward to bringing you another week of the most enriching content. So until next time, stay inspired, stay awesome, and keep on mastering your excellence.